This is Castle does, bringing some Subnautica, and the crunching has begun. The crunching has begun. So after the last experiment with, I guess I'm calling it another experiment. This is more of a specific thing, but the last entity placement, I said, okay, if the previous experiment didn't work quite well, what we're going to do, and here's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to do the same 4 batches in a separate branch, and I'm going to do manual placement of everything. So I'm going to completely sidestep the entire dynamic spawning system altogether, and I'm going to get the ideal spawning of creatures and loot, and we're going to replicate that feeling. We're going to get our dynamic spawning system to replicate that feeling from the results of what I do in this test. And at this point in time, doing manual placement, it took me a little bit longer to get set up and realize where all the objects are. And I'm now like really diving headfirst into like the spawning system and everything like that. But for this experiment, I'm just even the creatures. There are these fish called crashes, and they're like self-exploding fish. They're kind of like bombs from Final Fantasy or something. But actually, kind of a cute example of them. Maybe we could like start getting bigger. So I'm manually placing everything to create an environment that's cool. And then I discovered that there is other things going on. So there's a problem that there's a lot of stuff because I'm testing the shit out of everything at this point in time. I'm like, I'm really getting into this nitty gritty of this stuff, and I'm finding all kinds of weird things that have existed for a very long time. So, the fish have no leashing. Okay, so in a lot of games where you have a static world, there's a algorithm to prevent creatures from simply wandering off infinitely now on their own. When it comes to things like Skyrim and stuff like that, yeah, sure, nobody really cares if a creature wanders off too far. Certain creatures doesn't really matter. They have this like really advanced system Bethesda has with their tools called AI packages, and those AI packages are like a whole list of rules and different thing, and that's just like way more. But if you're to take a game that's a little bit more simplistic in terms of AI, we can take a look at something like from every MMO. World of Warcraft, let's just use that for an example. World of Warcraft, the creatures stay within a radius of their spawn point. And if they didn't do this, especially in a persistent world, they would, who knows where they'd end up in an hour. They would just kind of wander their ass right over to town, probably, and who knows what the hell that happened then. New players would just be getting killed from God knows what. So one of the things that I figured out is that the leashing system is not working for these fish. They don't stay around their spawn points. And at first it was like, oh really? Yeah, I thought that was one of the things, and it turns out that there was a bug in there. So that is getting addressed, and that's huge. That is going to help us tremendously. And I'm also overdoing it. So I brought up World of Warcraft, but Blizzard I look up to in terms of game design in a lot of ways because of the methods that they utilize to balance things. They just in design in general. I don't want to get into any discussions about WoW, but if players complain about something, they have a tendency to overshoot it. There's a sweet spot, right? And if you don't have enough of something, then players will complain. Oh, there's not enough loot, there's not enough creatures. Well, let's see what happens if we push that to, maybe 10% more than what I think that they're actually asking for. Let's over, and I want to see the next playtest where the players are complaining that there's now too much stuff, or maybe there's one of two possibilities here. They're gonna say this is perfect, in which case, yay, maybe, and or they can say you've gone too far. Well, if you've gone too far happens, now we know that it's somewhere between what we had and what we've got now. Let's pull it back about 20% and see the next playtest and see what they say that next time. So right now, I'm going for a reaction. I want to see the players say something different, because to me personally, when you have multiple playtests and you have 2 or 3 playtests in a row and the players are saying the same thing over and over again, well, that's a bad thing, because it's wasted. I want to hear something different every playtest. That means that we did something that the player noticed, or things have changed. And if you go too far in one direction or whatever, at least you can kind of see where you fit. You can't find the sweet spot unless you overshoot. You won't be able to. Yeah. Anyway, it's just random jargon at this point, but I'm being really generous. That's a really, really long-winded way of me saying I'm being super generous on the spawn points for everything. And during that time, I found a couple of things. One, I actually like the current spawning system. We're just not using it right, which was a nice thing to find out. I'm trying everything at this point. You see that really big fish? We do actually have really big, crazy stuff in the game. We just haven't really showed it off yet. I want to make sure we do, though. But and really creepy, when you're under the water and you see a really big thing and you're like, "The fuck is that thing?" Well, we don't have it implemented yet where it has any AI, but that feeling you get when you see something and you're underwater and you see this really big fucking thing and you're like, oh god, it's scary. I don't know what it is. Some survival instinct kicks in or something. I hate being underwater and there's a big freaking whale. But yeah, well, and our whales are a lot more dangerous, I'd have to say. Anyway, oh shit, I got way distracted. It was a rant. So the manual placement showed me that the current spawning system is a good thing. I prefer the slots, the green boxes, but I start at this point making changes to the way the green boxes actually function. After this, but I end up, this experiment, and this is kind of sad too, because I put a lot of time and energy into this experiment, but what I got out of the experiment was already pretty much concluded. I put all this time and energy in making sure that every square inch of this was totally playable with manual placement, but by the time I was done, I already kind of had the answers that I was looking for. Alright, thank you for watching.
Have a taste of the world, it's all for sale. Just name your price, we'll be on our way. There's no sell by date, it just spoils. Same shit, different